Part 2, The Wanderings of Odysseus, Episode 6, Hades. The time, 11 a.m. Scene, graveyard, eventually Glasnevin Cemetery, having started the funeral procession in Sandymount. Colour, black, white. Technique, Incubism. Correspondences. Dignam is Elpinor. Menton is Ajax. Parnell is Agamemnon. O'Connell, Hercules. Martin Cunningham being Sisyphus, the Caretaker being Hades, and the four rivers, the Orion, Laertes, Telemachus, and Antinous. The science or art is religion. The meaning is the descent into nothingness. The organ is the heart, and symbols of this chapter are cemetery, the past, the unknown man, and heart trouble. Other characters in the novel beyond those mentioned above would include Simon Daedalus, the man in the Mackintosh, and Reuben J, as well as Mr. Power. The plot. Martin Cunningham first poked his silk-hatted head into the creaking carriage and entering deftly seated himself. Mr. Power stepped in after him, curving his height with care. The funeral of Paddy Dignam. Starting out by Dignam's house in Sandymount, Bloom and three others, Martin Cunningham, Mr. Power, and Simon Daedalus, the father of Stephen, squeeze into a horse-drawn carriage. Bloom points out Stephen to his father as they pass him, who is relieved that he's not accompanied by Mulligan, a contaminated, bloody, double-eyed ruffian by all accounts. Elder Daedalus is upset on his son's behalf, starts Bloom to think about what might have been had his son Rudy lived, a topic he will return to again on this trip to the cemetery, before moving on in his thoughts to Millie and to his father's dog, who also died. Slowly he drifts out of the conversation, catching snatches until they pass Boylan on the street, and his three companions ask of Molly's upcoming concerts. Somebody brings up suicide, but Martin Cunningham speaks up quickly on behalf of those who do it as being temporarily insane. Bloom thinks well of Cunningham's goodness. It is a trip along the sticks with all these thoughts of death. After being delayed by cattle at the funeral itself, there are just 3 carriages there to mourn, as well as a mysterious man in a Mackintosh. As they walk to the grave, Cunningham upbraids his companions for bringing suicide up, with it being the anniversary of Bloom's father's suicide by poison. Bloom makes sure his name is noted as being present by the caretaker, and he also makes sure that McCoy's is too. He asks about the man in the Mackintosh, only to have the caretaker write down that some guy called Mackintosh was in attendance. "He's in with a low-down crowd," Mr. Daedalus snarled. "That Mulligan is a contaminated, bloody, double-eyed ruffian by all accounts. His name stinks all over Dublin, but with the help of God and his blessed mother, I'll make it my business to write a letter one of those days to his mother or his aunt or whatever she is, that will open her eye as wide as a gate. I'll tickle his catastrophe, believe you me." The carriage galloped around a corner, stopped. "What's wrong now?" A divided drove of branded cattle passed the windows, lowing, slouching by on padded hooves, whisking their tails slowly on their clotted, bony croups. Outside them and through them ran raddled sheep, bleating their fear. "Emigrants," Mr. Power said. "You must laugh sometimes, so better do it that way. Gravediggers in Hamlet. Shows the profound knowledge of the human heart. Daren't joke about the dead for 2 years at least. De mortui nil nisi prius. Go out of mourning first." Hard to imagine his funeral. Seems sort of a joke. Read your own obituary. Notice they say you live longer. Gives you a second wind. New lease of life. After 5 shorter chapters, this one is double the size of any of them. Arguably, the time spent at a funeral is longer than time spent elsewhere in the real world. It certainly has a massive cast. Joyce had his own universe before there was a Stan Lee. And if the first 3 chapters are echoes of a portrait of the artist as a young man, this is a victory lap for the story Grace from Dubliners. The main cast are mostly reunited, with Cunningham, Power, and McCoy, noted as being in attendance, having helped Tom Kernan, also present, to get past his alcoholism. There's even a reference to Fogarty, the grocer from the same story. There's also a reference to a painful case with the death of Mrs. Sinico referenced, and some believe that the mysterious man in the Mackintosh is Mr. Duffy from that same story. Bloom's losses are outlined here. Boylan looms large, but we hear of Rudy's death while young, and while Bloom dwells on the death of the dog Athos, it is Cunningham who notes that it is near the anniversary of his father's suicide. Another painful case that requires all of Bloom's grace.
On the